Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust. Broadcasting live presents Two Guys and a Bible with Don Preston and William Bell. Join us each week at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central as we bring you exciting, sound, challenging, and comforting messages regarding the end times. Thank you for tuning in today. Don Preston is the founder of Preterist Research Institute, or PRI. Don is a prolific author, having written and published 19 books, a host of audio and DVD studies, and is a debater and defender of the full preterist view. His websites are BibleProphecy.com, Eschatology.org, and DonKPreston.com. William Bell is the founder of AllThingsFulfilled.com Ministries and has a website bearing the same name, and has authored 3 books, audios, and DVDs. He has published hundreds of articles and recordings. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two Guys and a Bible broadcast with Don Preston and William Bell. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Two Guys and a Bible, right here on Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust. I am William Bell, and with me is Dr. Don Preston. We're delighted to be with you today. And Don, how are you? What's going on? And are you ready for a trip to Michigan?
You know, as the old saying goes, we're living in an age of technology. And I personally have been feeling totally overwhelmed with my technology just lately. I have a brand new MacBook Pro, and I had to get something updated in order to be able to go onto this Now TV network, which, by the way, my very first show will air this upcoming Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Central Time. My program will be titled, amazingly enough, Morning Musings. But anyway, I have been fighting with the technology. I've been trying to learn about this new MacBook Pro, the editing program that is in it, which is the Final Cut Pro, is one of the most bewildering things I have ever encountered in my life. And I have now had 2 IT people who are extremely familiar with the Final Cut Pro tell me, thank you, Rod Rippert, I appreciate that, tell me that the MacBook Pro with the Final Cut Pro is, in fact, an overwhelming program. Yesterday, for instance, I spent 4 hours trying to figure out how to properly edit videos. And after 4 hours, I was literally depressed. I was frustrated. I was angry and upset. I was like, why can't I figure this out? I don't think I'm totally ignorant. Sometimes I think I am when it comes to technology, but I was totally bewildered. And so today I've tried to upload some additional programming to enlist some help from a real good friend that will hopefully be able to do this. I've got to get another program uploaded to Now TV, and I have it filmed. I had it edited in my old computer, and I've got it sort of kind of edited in the new one, but I don't have the time before I leave for Michigan in the morning in order to get it done. And so, like I said, I am totally bewildered and stumped by the technology that I'm being confronted with. Now, if I was William Bell, it wouldn't be a problem. William Bell can march through this stuff. He has an understanding of it far, far, far beyond anything that I do. I call on William constantly to help me out, and he's very gracious, very patient with my ignorance, and so he can normally work me through it. Well, I've also enlisted the aid of somebody who does IT and computers for a living, he's also been patient with me, helping me out what he could, and I still don't have it. You know, normally when I've walked through something myself a time or two, I've got it down. I'm okay. I can do it. With this new program or with this new computer and the new program, I am lost. I would forget what I had done by the time I got home. I would actually lay in bed of a night, and I never do this. I would lay there going, okay, was I in iMovie or was I supposed to do that in Final Cut Pro? I think I'm supposed to do this in iMovie, or maybe after all it's Final Cut Pro. And as a result of that, well, in fact, I talked to Tom Mills, who's been kind enough to help me, and he said, yeah, that's part of your problem. He said, they're two separate entities. They're two separate processes. And he said, if you're trying to do one set of processes in the Final Cut Pro, it will not work. It will do nothing but confuse you. And I said, well, that has been absolutely the problem. Thank you, Alan Morton. I appreciate that so very much. My wife and I discussed you helping me out on this. So I've got some help coming, and it's just a matter of getting this good help lined up, what have you. So that's where it's at, William. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Is your audio any better?
I can hear you very well. I'm checking my audio now. Tell me if you can hear me and what it sounds
much
like.
Clearer. Much
okay.
clearer. It's
Good.
not. Yeah. No, it's not breaking up like it was there initially. It was almost undecipherable, but that's very, very good, very, very clear.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. So anyway, folks, look, William and I have both been given the opportunity. William was approached, first of all, about the opportunity with the Now TV network. He called me up immediately telling me about the opportunity, and we both committed to it. It's just a fantastic opportunity, just another door of opportunity that has been presented to us to be able to spread the message of God's wonderful faithfulness, how he has kept his word. And I've got to tell you, William, I got a phone call today from a guy from Seattle. I had an earlier conversation in the day with another fellow. I won't divulge where he's from, but both of these individuals, and the irony of this, of what I'm about to tell you, is that just this morning on Facebook, I had a guy telling me that people are losing their faith as a result of preterism. And yet both of these individuals today who contacted me out of the blue told me that discovering the truth of fulfilled eschatology has restored their faith and made their faith stronger than it has ever been in their life. And so I just thought that kind of ironic that this one guy just jumps up and says, Don Preston, you've got to face the reality that preterism is destroying the faith of people. And, of course, you and I both hear constantly, as I responded to this guy this morning, it's funny that you should say that, I told him. I hear from people virtually every day, certainly every week, who tell me that their faith has been restored, their love of the Lord is stronger than ever. So you're telling me it destroys faith. The people I'm hearing from tell me it has restored their faith. And then, like I said, after that engagement this morning, 2 different people contacted me telling me that to come to the realization and the belief that the Lord kept his word as he promised, when he promised, has restored their faith in him. They are more in love with the Lord than they've ever been. So I don't know if that was providential. I really don't know what you call that, but it was absolutely amazing and certainly encouraging to hear from these individuals today.
Yeah, well, like you say, you hear that all the time. I mean, I've got a message or two today as well, from people who are saying the same thing. And I think what these guys mean when they say that is that when they turn away from their futurism, that means that they're leaving the faith,
Yeah.
from futurism to preterism. So that's the way they're, I think, interpreting that. And they don't see that these people are renewing their faith in God, that they are becoming stronger, more inspired and motivated to study and to live for Christ, more self-assured in their salvation and confidence that they have in the Lord. And that's what it means. It's a real experience for them. And I've been working with 3 individuals, that I've told you about, that I'm having these studies with, and I can tell you, the change in their understanding, the change in their approach to Scripture, how they feel about it, and they're, kind of just thinking about, how do we share this with our family now? Because they got some issues that they got to work out, But it's made a difference in the way that they approach things and the way they feel about, the Word of God and themselves. And they don't feel a loss at all. They feel a great gain.
Well, there's one gentleman today from Seattle that I mentioned first of all. He told me that he is at a point in his life where he literally cannot wait to share this message with anyone and with everyone that will even halfway slow down and listen to him. And he said, naturally, I'm getting an awful lot of weird, strange looks as if I'm from another planet. But he said, I'm starting to get some people. He said, I've been talking to one young woman particularly. He said, when I started talking to her, she just told me I was crazy. There could not be anything to this. It had nothing to do with what she had ever been taught in her life. She didn't even know if she wanted to hear it. But they're good friends, and so they kept discussing. And he said, just recently, she told him, you know what? I'm really beginning to see what you're saying. This is really, really starting to make sense to me. And she was troubled, that it's like, this is starting to make sense. And I had a friend years ago, William, that, pardon me, you knew him, Frank Arbaugh from here in Ardmore.
Oh, yes.
Frank recently passed away, by the way, but nonetheless, Frank used to say that when someone is resisting covenant eschatology, but when they very first start seeing the truth of it, they're going to have a stomach ache. So he called it the preterist stomach ache because he said they're going to fight it. Pardon me. They're going to resist it, but they're going to keep coming back if they are an honest individual, and they're going to have that preterist stomach ache for month upon month upon month. And I said, well, that I'm hearing from an awful lot of people. I was thinking about his statement, and I was telling my wife, I said, we are just hearing from more and more people who have the preterist stomach ache. And
That's very good.
Yeah, you and I both know what a struggle it is. We're not laughing at the people. It's just that we've gone through that struggle, and we empathize and we sympathize, and we look back on that now, and we see where we're at and the joy and the confidence, the assurance, the faith that we have now, and it's hilarious in one way. Again, we sympathize with people who are, as the 3 people you're studying with there, they're trying to figure out how to share this truth with family members who just may not accept it very well. And 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I heard from an individual who said he had been completely cut off from his family. Not one of his family members would now talk to him when he shared with them his views on eschatology. They just said, you're out, you're gone, we don't know you anymore. So that's traumatic. It's a really heart-rending situation for someone to find themselves in, and yet we just have to appreciate the courage that is manifested by someone like that, who went ahead, who is persevering, who will not back down in spite of what his family is doing to him. That's what you call real faith, folks. When someone refuses to cave in to the persecution, when they refuse to fall away from what they have learned to be the truth. And so, again, you just really, really have to appreciate that kind of faith and courage.
That is so true. It is quite remarkable to see people step out and have the courage to embrace the truth, and then once they embrace it, to understand what they got to face. And it's necessary many times that we prepare them a little bit, just like Jesus did his disciples, of what they're going to face, and let them know that, for the, initial embracing of this truth, they may be met with some very, very unpleasant circumstances, and try to get them prepared for that. We've known those that we thought were strong, that, would be able to just take this and go right on out and survive and thrive, and yet who were kind of slammed back into their place, and some of them disappeared. On the other hand, there are those who, gradually understood what they were, facing, and they grew and, became stronger, and now they're, just tough as nails as it goes, and they'll just continue to study, serve, and share the message with others, and that's just the way it works.
I have said many, many times, you've heard me say it from the pulpit many times, in the preterist movement, anytime you have a major movement, this goes back to the days of the Reformation movement, to the Restoration movement in America. I have people tell me all the time, and look, I understand the different personalities. I understand that some people are more aggressive, some people are more bold, some people, like myself, are just kind of naturally blabbermouth and can't keep quiet. So that's kind of our nature. But yeah, thanks. I'm just such a quiet, shy, reticent type of person, But anyway, I tell people, and I've said this from the pulpit, the preterist movement needs warriors. We do not need spectators. Now, again, everyone can play a different role. In any army, there are people that are out on the front lines with their guns blazing, but supporting them, and they're every bit as much of a warrior as the person on the firing line shooting their weapon. But right. Supporting them are the people doing the logistics, making sure they got plenty of ammunition, making sure they got boots to wear, making sure their clothes are warm, making sure of every single item that makes sure that person...
Everything else.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there are just so many different aspects, so many different roles in any kind of a reformation. And I've had people apologize to me before. Well, Don, I'm not a debater like you, or I'm not a speaker like William Bell, or I can't write books like you can. I said, that's not the point. I said, everyone has a different ability. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of an anecdote here, and it's a little bit facetious, okay? But hopefully it will make the point. I had a guy call me up today and say, I watch your YouTubes all the time, and I want to support you. So he said, I've got a gift for you. I'm going to send you a Bunn coffee maker. And I'm going, holy cow, a Bunn coffee maker is an expensive piece of equipment. But the guy says, we got to keep you going. We got to keep you happy in your coffee. now, now, is coffee absolutely essential for Don Preston to write books or to be on Facebook or YouTube? Well, almost, but not quite. uh, and again, I know that illustration is a little bit facetious, but we have people. We have people like Tom Mills, who is here, who did our live stream video. We have people like Alan Morton, who texted in a few moments ago and said that he would be willing to help edit. And he is my webmaster. And Alan's not one of those people out there on the front lines with a rifle in his hand, so to speak, although he posts on Facebook and does a great job of that from time to time. But he's a quieter type of guy. And other people, they have the financial ability to support those of us who are on the front lines. And so the point of it is, those people are not spectators in the sense that I'm talking about it. They're involved in the fight. Are they recognized as warriors? No, not by the general public, but by the people they support. They're known as warriors. And so everyone, William, that supports you financially, supports your television program, and everything that you financially, they're warriors. Everyone who supports Preterist Research Institute, they are warriors. And we need all sorts of different kinds of warriors in this movement that is advancing and that is growing by leaps and bounds. I'm telling you, another person called me up today, and they said, Don, you probably don't know it. You may not hear of it, but he said, I want you to know. He said, I tell people every single day about your YouTube videos. And he said, I'm hearing from those people about the impact of your YouTube videos. And he said, now, whether or not they're ever contacting you, none of them have said they have. But he said, you are touching lives in my area, even if you do not know it. That happened to be the guy, by the way, that's sending me a Bunn coffee maker. So here's a guy that is a true warrior. Really, all he's doing is telling people about the YouTubes. He's letting the YouTubes be his voice. And he also mentioned you and your presentations, and was so thankful for your ministry as well as mine. And 2 or 3 people over the last couple of days have said, I cannot tell you about how much I appreciate William Bell and you and the impact you have had on my life. And so, I mean, this is an army. This is a movement. Every single thing that you, as a listener, for instance, of Fulfilled Radio, Two Guys in a Bible, everything that you can do, even if it's telling someone, hey, you need to tune in Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, fulfillradio.com. Listen to those guys. That may not seem a lot, but do you know what, folks? We never, ever know how that's going to impact someone's life. William told us recently about encountering someone, being contacted by someone who said the only reason they started listening to him was because somebody told them about him and about what he's teaching. So it's like, okay, I'm going to listen to him, and I'm going to prove him wrong. And now they're a full preterist. I can't tell you the number of people that I've been contacted just exactly like that. So here's a person who started out as an adversary. They're now convinced. How many lives will that one person impact? We don't know. And so from a recommendation by a friend, hey, you need to listen to that guy named William Bell. He's teaching what? Well, the only reason I'm going to watch you, I'm only going to listen. I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to show you that guy's crazy. And now they're a full supporter, ideologically, theologically, of covenant eschatology. So again, how many lives will be impacted by that recommendation of a friend who said, you need to listen to William Bell? That's all they did. They just shared. And folks, that's what being a warrior involves. It's not a debate, not a confrontation, not controversy. It's just like, hey, man, you really need to listen to what these guys are saying. They're really putting some stuff out there. And so we could go on and on about this. And once again, there's such exciting things happening. I leave in the morning. William, do you leave in the morning as well?
I leave Thursday.
You leave Thursday, okay. Well, I leave in the morning. William will leave Thursday. We're headed to Michigan. We'll be speaking at a seminar up there. The group of preterists that is up there, they're very, very aggressive. They're very militant, and I don't mean mean by that. I just mean they're just spreading the word. And they are touching a lot of lives. And these folks have only been preterists for a very short period of time. But the congregations that they preach for are now full preterist churches. And so things like this are happening, and they're happening everywhere. Things are truly moving forward. And I just want to go back to one thing that I paid attention to a few moments ago, that I mentioned a few moments ago. This individual who told me that people are losing their faith as a result of preterism. It is an undeniable fact. I know people personally who have lost their faith because they were futurists. And here's what I mean. I know people who've gone to college. William, you remember at Tulsa some years ago, all of the young people that we met who were going to college, and they were being confronted with these atheistic, skeptical, belligerent, God-hating, Bible-hating professors who told them that Jesus was a failure, the apostles were liars, the Bible is not inspired. And they were troubled by those professors. But when they heard the solution of preterism, they got excited. And then you and I saw the tragedy of their preachers or elders or whoever it was taking them aside and shaking their finger at them, telling them not to come back to our table, not to listen to us. And as you and I discussed at the time, okay, are those young people who are now forbidden to listen to the answer, to the atheist, to the skeptics, are they going to go in and lose their faith? It's no secret, folks. And if you don't believe this, all you got to do is read some church growth studies. Evangelical Christianity, and it's certainly true in the churches of Christ, we are losing well over 50% of our young people who go off to college. Now, is a doctrine condemning Christ for being a false prophet the sole reason? I'm not suggesting that. Is it part of the reason? That is undeniable. And so preterism is literally the only eschatology that can equip our young people to meet the atheist professors in college. It is the only eschatology that can give an answer to the Jews who hate Jesus. It is the only eschatology that can answer the Muslims. And William can tell a story of two Muslims that came to his door right there in Memphis and left totally bewildered because of preterism, having to admit that William Bell had answered their objection to Jesus. Listen, folks, there is no futurist eschatology that has an answer for the atheist, the Jew, the Muslim. None of them. And yet here's this guy on Facebook saying that it's preterism that causes people to lose their faith, when in reality it is futurism that causes people to lose their faith when they do not know how to answer the skeptics, the atheists, the Muslims, and the Jews. That is the bitter reality, ladies and gentlemen. And it's time for the church, evangelical Christianity as a whole, to wake up to the truth of covenant eschatology.
Well, that is certainly the truth. And, we look at the failure or the, I guess, attrition that's going on in the church all the time. And, you try to figure out, what's happening. I heard someone, interesting that you mentioned that about the university. I heard someone say the other day, that young people who are going off to school are, practically losing their faith because of what's being taught them in the universities. And it seems like, they treat them as prey almost. Okay, here we go with some new fresh meat, so to speak. Let's see how quickly we can destroy them and, eradicate Christianity from their minds. And it's just sad to experience. I recall the time, this was years ago, when I was, doing some part-time work. And there was a person who was attending the University of Memphis at the time. And she didn't, we were all working in the office together, and she didn't really have a strong grasp of the Bible. She just, was exposed to it, but someone had been teaching her, evolution, et cetera. And I recall when I was, a young kid in the 7th grade, I had a teacher who taught evolution, and I, just swallowed it, hook, line, and sinker, because I had nothing else to, to think about or replace it with, et cetera. And, he got up and did all his pictures on the board and everything, and he was passionate about it. And I said, well, it must be true. He likes it. But anyway, after I learned about the Bible and, rejected that, just, became even angry that I was ever, susceptible to it. I was having that experience with her, and she was talking about it and how it was disturbing her. And so I sat her down, and we studied through some things in the Bible, and I tell you, it just transformed her life within that one study alone. And she left there with a, very committed and strong faith in terms of, going back to school and facing what she had to face. So it's important that we reach out to them and that we, talk to them. And young people are looking. They're searching for, for some real answers. They want to see that you're genuine. They want to see that you care beyond just the information that you share. But, when you can do that, they are a, just great opportunity for evangelism. And I think they, really appreciate the message of, fulfill eschatology if they, are doing any study at all. One of the things that is most amazing, even from the YouTube videos you've been talking about, is when a young person comes across your page and the excitement that they have when they learn about this, and they understand it. It's just so transforming, and they're very, very verbal about it. So I love when they get excited about it and when they get involved.
Well, something you mentioned there, William, is extremely true. It happened in my own personal life as well. And this is when I was in the 10th grade in Fayetteville High School at Fayetteville, Arkansas. Very first day of biology class. Our teacher, Mrs. Taylor, here we are, a classroom full. There's probably 45 or 50 in the class. Pretty good size high school there at Fayetteville High. And Mrs. Taylor started out by saying, okay, I want to know how many people in this class believe in God. Well, virtually the whole class held their hand up. How many of you believe in the Bible? How many of you believe in Jesus? Well, again, virtually the whole class. And Mrs. Taylor, she was a very, very arrogant woman. She said, I'll tell you right now, you are a bunch of dummies. She said, it is absolutely ignorant to believe in the Bible. And she said, before you leave this class, not one of you is going to believe in God or the Bible or Jesus Christ. And she said, furthermore, When I give you a test, if you do not put my answers on that test, if you give an answer based on your faith in Jesus, I will fail you. And we all sit there, needless to say, somewhat stunned. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, I'm just a naturally quiet, shy, and reticent guy, so I held my hand up. And I said, Mrs. Taylor. And she said, yes, what's your name? And I told her. I said, well, you might as well give me a failing grade right now because I don't believe in evolution, and I ain't changing my mind about evolution. I'm going to tell you what I think is what the truth is. And she was like, what did you say your name was? And I told her, and she said, young man, you and I are going to have trouble. I said, that's fine. I believe in God and the Bible. Well, when it came time at the end of the year, she gave me a D- for the sole reason of getting me out of her class. She would not give me an F and make me fail it. I could get by on a D-. And so she told me, she said, I want you out of here because I fought her tooth and nail. Now, that was really good for me because it forced me to read and to study. And, of course, that's way before Google, way before the Internet. And so I had to go to the library, and I had to find sources that could help prepare me to answer the things that she was saying. And I frustrated that woman beyond words. And she would point her finger at me during class, and if I held my hand up to make a comment, she would just simply, no, you are not allowed to speak up in my class. So I must say that was really a lot of fun. But anyway, but that was the type of person that she was. That's the type of person that many of these professors and school teachers are. They literally hate God. Now, it seems to me that it's absolutely, horribly unfair that the Bible cannot be taught, religion cannot even hardly be mentioned, and yet people who hate the Bible have free rein to attack the Bible. Now, it seems to me if a teacher or a professor stands up and tells the class, you're a bunch of dummies if you believe in the Bible, I believe as a student who is paying my money, I have a perfect right to hold my hand up and say, I believe you're the ignorant one. I believe you're the one that doesn't have a solid evidentiary type of ideology. So that's my view. Let's go for it. Of course, again, that just happens to be kind of my attitude about things. People ask me very often, they say, Don, well, I'm in a church and I don't really want to cause trouble. What should I do? And I said, you're asking the wrong person. I said, you're asking a person that cannot keep quiet. You're asking a person that believes I've got to speak what I believe. It's kind of like Paul said in 2 Corinthians 4:13. I believe, therefore I speak. I find it virtually impossible to keep my mouth shut, and especially if somebody is going to attack what I believe. I believe that I have a right to defend myself, to give a reason for the hope that lies within me, for the faith that lies in me. And so we've got to be able to equip people to answer the atheist and the enemies of Christ. That is incumbent upon us. And yet the church, the evangelical church in America, basically throughout the world, has been and continues to do an absolutely miserable job of preparing our young people to meet those challenges. It's really, really sad.
Yes, it is. It's amazing. And I'm, pretty much that way too when it comes down to people expressing ideas and thoughts that just don't quite add up. The logic in them is just not too sound, and I'll sit there and listen for a minute, and then I just have to speak. I have to say something about it, even if it's to, ask them a question and make them think. I had somebody just tell me not too long ago, actually today, you ask too many questions. But, especially when people are making, they're making charges and assertions and assumptions and, expressing their opinions, and they're not making any sense, or they are refusing. And so I ask questions in order to draw them out. And those questions, of course, are pretty loaded in terms of what they respond. I mean, it's not an unfair question. It's a question that gets to the heart of what's going on. And, saying that I ask too many questions, well, give me some real answers, and then maybe I'll stop asking them.
Well, the point that you make there, how many times did Jesus in his ministry, when he was challenged and people would ask him, who are you? By what authority do you do this? Or by what authority do you do that? And what did Jesus do? He responded by asking questions. Mm-hmm. And, look, William, I get the identical response that you do, especially on Facebook. Well, if you make a claim, Preston's going to ask you 15 questions. Well, why not? Why not? If the questions, and yes, questions are loaded. Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? That's a really loaded question, folks. I'm sorry. If you answer that wrong, there are serious consequences to that. And when Jesus was approached by what authority do you do this or that or the other, what did he do? He asked questions. He asked questions concerning the David. What did David mean when he said, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemy your footstool? How did David call him Lord? Well, the Jews had been pondering that for centuries. They had no answer for that. So here they came challenging Jesus with questions. He turns right around and asks them questions that gets to the very heart, to the very core, to the very foundation of their misunderstandings about their own theology. And so they didn't dare answer his question. They didn't dare. And both you and I get that same reaction on Facebook and different venues when we ask questions that causes that person to think and to realize, oh my goodness, if I answer that question this way, I'm wrong. If I answer it this way, I've entrapped myself. The answer to that question agrees with what Preston or Bell is saying. So I'll just tell them, you ask too many questions. And they'll run away from that discussion. I on Facebook, just over the last week or so, I've been in a conversation with this guy, says that there's no such thing as an old covenant age. There's no such thing as the Mosaic covenant age. There is no such thing as the new covenant Christian age, because those terms do not appear in Scripture. And, folks, on this program, and of course we've been talking for an awful long time tonight on just various topics and sharing some news with you and telling anecdotes and what have you. But an awful lot of what we do on this program is to try to teach the proper hermeneutic. And over and over and over again, on Facebook, I encounter people whose only defense against preterism is a false hermeneutic. And as a prime example, this young man made the argument, there is no such thing as the Mosaic age, the Old Covenant age. There's no such thing as the Christian age, the New Covenant age, because those terms never appear in the Bible. I responded by asking him, please show me the text where the term the Trinity appears. And I said, we both know that you believe in the Trinity. And yet that term never appears anywhere in the Bible. Well, he was obviously entrapped. He was obviously facing a dilemma. If he said, well, the doctrine of the Trinity is there, therefore it doesn't matter if the specific term is used. Okay, then if the doctrine of the Mosaic age is in the Bible, then that's a proper term. If the doctrine of the New Covenant age is in the Bible, then it doesn't matter if the specific term is found. He realized that. So he came back, gave me this obfuscatory, evasive answer that said, there's a big difference between believing in the Trinity and demanding a term be used. And I wrote back and I said, you are doing nothing but evade the issue. The issue is not a belief in a doctrine. The issue is you rejected a doctrine because of a lack of term. I therefore have the right to reject the doctrine of the Trinity because of the lack of the term. You're simply trying to evade the issue. Yesterday I posted another response to his argument, pointing out this tragedy. I said, what is really, really sad is that you agree that there was another age and that the law of Moses passed away, and yet you fail to see that the temple itself represented that age. Because after all, when Jesus predicted the destruction of the temple, they associated that with the end of the age. And I said, now here's the tragedy. You refuse to believe that the age ended because you say we are still living in this present evil age, unquote, Galatians 1, verse 4. But I said, that was Paul's present evil age 2,000 years ago. It was the age of the ministration of death written and engraven in stone. You believe that covenant passed away, but the age that defined that covenant, or the age defined by that covenant, I should say, has never passed away. You believe the new covenant has come into effect, but it's not a new covenant age. So I said, therefore, what you're telling us is, even though the old covenant passed away, even though the ministration of death passed away, and we live under a new covenant, a covenant of life, according to you, the new covenant of life is still this present evil age. So your changing of covenants has done nothing whatsoever to overcome the evil. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Going from the ministration of death to the ministration of life has not overcome sin. It has not overcome death. It has not overcome anything, because the God of this world is still in control of sin and death. So tell me what good that covenant transformation did. I'm still waiting for his answer, by the way.
Yeah, can imagine.
But this is the kind of thing we encounter. This is what I mean by a bad hermeneutic. And men like Sam Frost used this hermeneutic not long ago, and I document this in my book, The Death of Adam, The Life of Christ, which is still available on Kindle. Hopefully the paperback will be out before long. Sam Frost says there is no such thing as spiritual death because that term is not found in the Bible. Well, Yeah, I call that the hermeneutic of the missing hermeneutic, because they say, well, those words are missing, therefore the doctrine is not there. And over and over and over and over again, I have had the enemies of covenant eschatology employ this type of hermeneutic. Joel McDermott employed it in my debate with him in 2012. I don't see the term final resurrection in Isaiah chapter 25. Therefore, it's not talking about final resurrection. So when William and I on Two Guys in a Bible here on Fulfilled Radio, a voice you can trust, we spend an awful lot of our time talking about hermeneutic, how to properly interpret the Bible. And I tell you what, folks, one of the ways to properly interpret the Bible is not to demand that any given specific term or phrase be used to understand that the doctrine may very well still be very, very present. And so we need not fall into a trap that says, oh, look, these preterists, they say, well, everything ended in AD 70. Sam Frost is fond of saying in discussing any given text, I don't see the term AD 70 anywhere. Where do you find the term AD 70? What kind of a hermeneutic is that? It's a false hermeneutic. It is a desperate hermeneutic that says, I don't have an exegetical answer to the argument that's being made. Therefore, I'll throw this out there and say, well, the term doesn't appear, therefore the doctrine is not there. It's just absolutely incredible how misguided the hermeneutic of futurism can be. And it goes back to what I've often referred to, the argumentum ad desperatum. When people do not have an exegetical, solid hermeneutical answer or argument, they resort to arguments of pure desperation. And as William and I have said on many, many occasions, I said it on Facebook yesterday to a guy. No, I guess that was this morning. I said, you're literally making things up as you go along. This is not biblical. And he never even responded. He never said, I'm not making that up. He just continued to throw it out there. So it's a proper understanding of Scripture, proper theology, proper doctrine, proper interpretation is based upon the absolute necessity for proper hermeneutic. If you don't have a proper hermeneutic, you cannot do proper exegesis. And when we approach the biblical text, ladies and gentlemen, and if I may touch here in closing on the subject of our present study of the Messianic temple, just because we do not find the term spiritual temple but one time, 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 5, doesn't mean that that's not what's being talked about in Ephesians chapter 2 or 1 Corinthians chapter 3 or 1 Corinthians chapter 6. Folks, we have got to learn to think Hebraically, as we have said on many, many occasions. I was sharing with someone on the telephone today. He has watched my videos an awful lot, and he has begun to grasp the importance of understanding the Hebraic worldview. And he said, Don, one of the things that I'm encountering is people think that because they can pick up a Bible written in English, that automatically gives them insight into the ancient world, into the mind of the Hebrews. And he said, I have been telling people, he said, ever since I watched your videos on how to interpret the Bible, he said, I have been telling people we've got to understand Hebraic thought. And he said, people look at me like I'm from Mars when I say that. And that's one of the most common problems that we encounter. I had a preacher from the Churches of Christ right here in Ardmore tell me probably 15 years ago, when I was making these statements, we have to understand the Hebraic mindset. We have to understand the Old Testament in order to understand the New. And this preacher, he just basically exploded. And he said, I'll tell you right now, if I can't pick up 1 Corinthians 15 and read it and understand it exactly and precisely like I would pick up the local newspaper, then I don't want anything to do with the Bible. I said, do you understand Isaiah 25 and Hosea 13? And William, this guy looked at me. He looked at me like I had been speaking in Hebrew. And he goes, what in the world does that have to do with what we're talking about? He said, I'm talking about 1 Corinthians 15. I said, but Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 said that it would be fulfilled when Isaiah 25 and Hosea 13:14. I said, and we can throw Daniel chapter 12 into the mix. It would be when those Old Testament prophecies were fulfilled. And he said, you're crazy. 1 Corinthians 15 has nothing whatsoever to do with Isaiah 25 or Hosea or Daniel. Well, I happen to have a Bible. I showed it to him where the center column references cite Isaiah 25 and Hosea 13. And he said, that means absolutely nothing at all. Paul was not looking for the fulfillment of Isaiah and Hosea and Daniel. Well, that may be an extreme case, but unfortunately, it's not all that extreme. When people just refuse to consider the meaning of the Bible in light of proper hermeneutic, and that is a holistic approach to what the Bible has to say. Well, William has done an awful lot of talking tonight and used up all of our time. So I'm going to try to slip in a word edgewise here, folks, and say thank you so much for joining us on Two Guys and a Bible, right here on Fulfilled Radio, a voice you can trust. And with that, I will say good night and God bless.
Thank you for joining the Two Guys and a Bible radio broadcast. On behalf of Dunn Preston and myself, we'd like to say have a very pleasant day and may God bless. Until next time, we'll see you on Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust.